Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you took all your favourite elements from all of your favourite divers and put them together in the same watch? Well, stick around for 10 minutes and you're about to find out. I posted this picture to my Instagram account at Just One More Watch, by the way, last weekend, and I said I was bored and I was going to build something. It was probably going to be ugly, it was probably not going to work all that well, but I didn't care. I just wanted to have some fun. Ladies and gentlemen, not coming to Kickstarter anytime soon, let me introduce you to the Amphibimariner SKX. Let's flip the camera and watch Dr. Frankenstein at work. As a lifelong tinkerer, my house is full of boxes of computer parts, boxes of bike parts, and of course, boxes of watch parts. Now, this was the kind of photo that I posted on Sunday. I knew I wanted to build something, but I didn't really go in with a specific agenda. I guess I knew that it would be NH35 powered because I have a few of those lying around, and I knew that it would involve that Submariner style case that was formerly, the artist formerly known as Star King. Probably the best thing I could have done with that Star King is pull it to pieces and turn it into something else. That was the one that I said was worse than Invicta and more expensive. Now, as you can see here, I've got a bunch of ceramic bezel inserts, a bunch of dials, all kind of Seiko dials of the same size. I thought I was going to do something like that, and then I found the Paratrooper dial that I had taken off the Vostok that I'd modded a couple of years ago. I found the SKX bezel with insert, I found this big box of hands, and the plan to make the Amphibimariner SKX was born. So what I did was I sized up the dial. I put it against an NH35 just to make sure it was roughly the same size as a Seiko dial, and I could see most of the date window. Folks, this build is a bit rough and ready today in more than one or two areas, so I wasn't all that bothered if the date was slightly obscured. It was going to be an inevitability that this watch would have a couple of rough edges to it. So this was kind of what I had envisaged, black on black on black with that nice red star on the Paratrooper dial. So easy enough, get rid of that nasty cheap mesh strap off the back of the Star King case. And my next job was to remove the dial pins from the Vostok. They obviously weren't going to be compatible with the NH35, so I just brutally removed them with a set of pliers. It was a really solid dial, by the way. I was worried about bending it, but I shouldn't have been. Soviet era tech. Nothing was going to bend that thing. Once again, I sized it up against the NH35 and it looked like it was going to do the job that I needed it to do. Just to be sure though, I placed the dial on a movement, put it in the case, screwed down the case back, and it all looked like it was going to fit. And crucially, those little loom pips weren't going to be obscured, they were all going to sit just nicely. So then I had to find a movement. No shortage of options. I had 4 NH35s in those boxes. However, there were problems with most of them. One of them, the first one here, the date didn't turn, so that was out. Now the second one, the date turned, it wound, no problem at all. But nothing happened. The whole movement was dead, so again, that one was out. The third one you can see here, that actually came from the Franken Samurai project. That was the one that had been run over repeatedly, so it didn't work. That was out. The fourth one, now that kind of worked, but it was really rough. The rotor on here, I've never quite had an NH35 sounding as rough when it spun, but I figured I could swap the rotors for one of the other ones, and that's what I did. Then I had to find the original Star King crown, which I did, no problem at all, and swapped the rotors over, made sure that the date clicked on in this one, and job's a good one. That's one NH35 made from 4 NH35s. The next thing I did was remove the original bezel and insert from the case. Now, it not only looked like an Invicta, it actually worked. It was manufactured the same way that the Invicta case was manufactured. I looked at another video on YouTube that said the easiest thing to do was just to rip off that aluminium insert, which I did, and then there was a spring clip inside it, much like the Vostok bezel. I popped out that spring clip, as you can see here, and the whole bezel was just simply removed. There was a second kind of rotating clip there, which I wasn't going to use because I realised that the SKX bezel was not going to be compatible at all with this case. I was going to have to end up gluing it, which I did, but the whole thing worked, no problems there either. Now hands, at one point I was even crazy enough to contemplate putting a set of snowflakes on this. Then it would have been an Amphibimariner SKX, and I thought that would have been one step too far. I did have an original SKX handset from a build that I had done last year, Plus I found a little second hand that I'm going to keep as a treat that I thought worked really, really well with the paratrooper dial and that big red star. There's your clue. So having removed those dial pins, those dial feet, how was I going to attach the dial? Well, using dial dots, of course. I had these ones lying around. You peel off the little brown cap and it's a double-sided sticky pad. But then I thought, Jodie, why introduce standards to this build now? Just glue the bugger on. So that's what I did with this contact adhesive. This is the GS Hypo Cement that I've used in various builds. All I had to do was make sure that the pinion was sitting centrally to the hole in the dial and that the date was as best as I could get it aligned with the crown there. What I also did was, once I stuck it on, I put it into the watch case, just again to make sure that I had done a reasonable job and it wasn't squint too badly left or right, though again, it's a rough and ready build, I'm not all that bothered. As it turned out, I did a pretty decent job of it. I think I got it aligned perfectly, which is always a bit of a surprise in my case. Next thing to do, everybody's favourite job, is the handset. But before I did that, I had to make sure I knew where the movement was located. So I adjusted the time just to the point where the date clicked over, so that gave me an idea of where midnight was. And then I applied the first hand, the hour hand, which is always the one you apply first, at the 12. As you can see here, I pointed that directly to the 12 o'clock. The hour hand is the easiest, that went on fairly swiftly. I then wound the crown down to what was effectively 6 AM and then added the minute hand. Again, not too difficult. It's the second hand that is always done with, shall we say, a loop and a prayer. That one I did off camera, but as you can see, I got it all working, and that little red paddle second hand worked perfectly, I reckon, really bringing out the red in the red star on the paratrooper dial, I think. Next thing I did was give the Submariner style case, the old Star King case, a bit of a clean up here and put the movement in. I took the crown out, put the movement in, made sure it all lined up, put the crown back in and screwed down the case back before making sure that everything worked. The hands weren't fouling anywhere, the date change clicked over at midnight and everything worked as it should. The second hand was able to spin freely, all three hands were able to spin freely, and I was delighted to find out that it all worked nicely. And finally, to add the last bit of SKX into the Amphibimariner SKX, I had to glue on that bezel, once again using plenty of Hypo Cement, and I left it there for a good amount of time to ensure that it stuck fast. So no rotating bezel here, but again, standards, what standards? So there you have it, another fantastic and fully functional mod by yours truly. Thanks for watching, I will see you in a future video. What? You want to see it? Well, alright then. Yes, okay, so that would have been like telling the world's longest joke and then not giving you the punchline. So there it is, on screen for your viewing pleasure, the punchline. My, what a punchline. I think it looks alright actually. I don't hate it. I mean, clearly it's a mishmash of 3 different watches and there is a ton going on, too much going on, but I don't think it looks awful. And, you know, for a bit of a whim, for a bit of a project, I think it is certainly entertaining and unique, quite literally unique. As always, if a watch has 20mm lug width on this house, I slap it on that Colareb Spoleto in rust brown. The strap already has a touch of the mange about it and I think that rather suits the overall look of the watch. But you know what, it'll tick away. The bezel doesn't function obviously and the date frame obscures double digits, which is why it's set at 3 and not 13, but it looks alright, it wears quite well, and I reckon it'll still have 100 meters of water resistance, which the original Star King had on it. I might pop it on a rubber strap and take it to the beach once the weather warms up, who knows. This time I mean it. Thanks for watching, I will see you in a future video.